Hello again. Had a lot of requests come through wanting me to showcase my process for converting paint schemes, liveries that are on one vehicle for use on another vehicle utilizing GIMP. So today I'm going to be taking you through converting this certified Harpoon Vaporwave machine from a Ford Mustang to a Chevy Camaro. I'm going to show you all the things to look out for in that process and how to efficiently do that. I will also briefly touch on what it would be like, say, converting a Aston Martin GT4 to a Porsche GT4 and the different intricacies that would entail. So let's get into it. All right, first things first, go ahead and open up the file that we're going to be transferring from. For me, that's this Mustang B template here with all of my details on it already that you saw within iRacing. Sponsors, the design, everything else. If all of this looks foreign to you, go ahead and watch some of my earlier tutorial videos taking you up to speed on how to go from complete novice to relative GIMP expert at creating paint schemes for iRacing. This video is exclusively focused on the transfer process. All right, the next step is go ahead and open up the file that we're going to be transferring to. For me, that's the Camaro B. I've gone ahead and prepared it as well by adding some extra decal layers in here. You notice this BED layer that I have on both the Mustang and the Camaro. This is a group called Big Evil Design. I'll drop a link in the description. They provide a bunch of realism mods in a way that you might see in real life. Say like the rear bumper tape that you'd see on the super speedways in real life, the rear bumper tow hooks that you might see, the inspection stickers, the rear spoiler tag, the exhaust cover you see here at the back, that you might see in real life. Adds a lot of extra detail to your vehicle, and honestly makes all of my paint schemes look that little bit better. So if you paint NASCAR vehicles, I'd highly recommend dropping BED layers onto your vehicle. So again, link in the description for that. But irregardless of those layers, let's go ahead and work on transferring this design over to the Camaro. This is a really simple process. All we're going to do is create a new layer group. I'm going to right click here on the paintable area, go to new layer group. You can also do this down here at the bottom of the screen, clicking that button there. Double click on it, we're going to rename it transfer. I'm going to drag all the layer groups that I need on the new Camaro that are here on the Mustang currently. So say the numbers, the sponsor, the design, and the base. The next step is go ahead and make sure this transfer folder is 2048 by 2048, matching our template size. Now you might be asking yourself, why does it need to be 2048 by 2048? So if you notice here on this 87 layer, I'm going to hit Shift S and bring up my scale tool. It is smaller than 2048 by 2048. You can also see that outline here. If I were to go ahead and transfer this over to the Camaro, and this is a really simple process, just go ahead and hold left click, drag it up to the Camaro, and then down. I'll drag this over here. You'll notice that it was not placed within the borders that it was within the Mustang. And that's not because these borders are in a different location between these two vehicles. It's actually because GIMP has gone ahead and placed this folder directly in the center of this template. Now, if you look back here, you'll notice it's much closer to the bottom than it is to the top of this canvas. So if I look back over here, it's in the center, it's messed it all up. The way to fix this is by having this be 2048 by 2048 before you transfer it. So again, heading back to the folder here, we go to transfer, and I hit Shift S to bring up our scale tool. You'll notice it is much larger than 2048 by 2048. So the way we fix this is just to go ahead and right click on transfer, alpha to selection, go ahead and head up here to layer, crop to selection, Control Shift A to deselect, and if we hit Shift S again, it is now 2048 by 2048. Now, say one of your folders is smaller than 2048 by 2048, what you can do is just go inside that layer, right click, add new layer. I'm just gonna call it whatever. And you'll notice because that was a 2048 by 2048 layer, now everything's 2048 by 2048. So if I were to drag the 87 over, boom, everything is okay. But since I got everything in one nice spot, I don't need to do that. Go to transfer, again, holding left mouse over and down, and there we go. We have the base components over onto the Camaro. Now that we have all of our files over on the Camaro, let's do a visual inspection of the vehicle and see if there's any glaring issues we need to fix. So here on the Camaro, these two vehicles are incredibly similar. The Xfinity Mustang and the Camaro are very, very similar vehicles. Certain vehicles are going to be more similar than others. These two, very, very similar. So you notice, doesn't seem to be too out of line as we look around. First thing that jumps out to me is the rear end here. The rear end design on the Mustang is very different, so we're going to have to change our logo here to make that match a bit better. You also notice that we can't really see the rear end design anymore because this Camaro decal covers most of that up. I'll leave it as it is just since it's there. But I might maybe take out this peak because it looks a little silly. Looking around the vehicle, everything again looks fairly easy, fairly straightforward. I want to go ahead and showcase a vehicle transfer that may be much more difficult. So I designed this Carl Edwards car from 2013 on the legacy Mustang template. So again, this Mustang template that you see here that he ran in real life, this is the 2016 Ford Mustang. Notice the rear end is very large. We got the front end kind of divided into multiple sections all the way around. When I went to transfer that onto the modern Mustang, you notice here, I'll go ahead and turn off the car itself. This is an absolute mess. None of this lines up. It was a complete disaster. Eventually, I was able to get it straightened out here, not changing anything about the design itself, just moving it around. So what you have to do is just come in here. I'm just going to go ahead and delete the left layer because it's not really that relevant. Come to my right layer, hit M on my key, and I had to just drag this up, move it around in order to get it to line up where I had it and make some adjustments. So at the rear end here, I had to make some adjustments. So again, if you look here, had to make some adjustments, add some bits, change some things up. Depending on the vehicle, depending on how different iRacing makes these templates, this may be a super simple process like it is here for the Camaro. It may be an incredibly tedious process like the legacy Mustang to modern Mustang conversion. So I just wanted to point that out. All right, another potential use case that you could utilize in this video for is converting a design between different vehicles within a similar subgroup. So in this case, these are two different GT4 cars, the Porsche Cayman and the Aston Martin. And you see the general design of this next level vehicle is the same. We use the same layers. So if I go down in here and I scroll down to my left copy here, you'll notice that the design's all the same. It's got the same striped pattern with the red, and again, the same sort of angle. However, just due to the nature of the two vehicles, I had to change a lot up between them. So on the Porsche, I had to add this front end swoop here, and I also had to meet these two in the middle and branch them between these different pillars in a way that I just didn't have to on the Aston just because this vehicle is very different. As you notice, I was able to bring this all the way along the hip and up into the back glass here in a way that I just really wasn't able to on the Porsche without it looking rather silly. So again, if we look in here and I were to go ahead and go back to my car model, you notice here is the Porsche, kind of comes along the hip line here and swoops up, and I kept it along the front end here. If we were to go to the Aston, scroll up, you'll notice I made some changes strategically just because the front end is very different on this vehicle. I didn't want to paint this one tiny section here, and it just followed the hip line better to bring it up and through there. So again, depending on the vehicle you're transferring to, you may have to make bigger or smaller changes in order to get the desired effect that you want in the end. All right, what I've gone ahead and done is exported this transferred Camaro into my subfolders. If I were to hit Control E real quick, you'll see my extension. Again, Documents, iRacing Paint, Stock Car 2, Camaro 2019, car underscore num underscore user ID. Again, if all of that process seems unfamiliar to you, go ahead and head back to those original videos. They'll walk you through that whole process. So heading into iRacing, here is the vehicle itself. Go ahead and make sure we have the turn off before exporting turned off. We notice it here. Everything looks fairly all right. The hood looks good. Everything looks to be lining up on the front end here. Maybe I need to pull this side in just a bit, but I mean, overall the fade looks fairly similar. This number looks very silly, so we'll have to fix that. We pan around to the side here. Everything looks pretty good. If I zoom in here at this glass piece here at the back, definitely have to shift this around. It's definitely not lining up anymore, so we'll have to shift this around a little bit. We'll have to change this as we talked about because this looks rather silly. Overall, I think it looks fairly good. Again, this kind of quarter glass definitely is messed up. We'll have to fix that one. So let's head into GIMP and fix that up. All right, so all I had to do to fix this was come in here to my folders. I have my certified harpoon layers here. I'll zoom in. I have my left one here. All I had to do was just shift this one section over a little bit. As you can see here, that's all I had to wind up doing. All I did was come in here, I found the section that I was working on. For me, it was this section here. I kept it all separate. And again, I just kind of shifted it down like this, somewhere in there. I wound up having to delete a little bit because it was overlapping into this new section. As you can tell here, so I had to delete it up a little bit higher. But overall, just had to shift it down like that. And once I exported that, as you can tell here, we go ahead and export that, Control E, come in here. everything's fixed up. It all lines up now. As you can tell on both sides, I got it all lined up just by shifting those around just a little bit. So again, if you're transferring between cars and things are no longer lining up, so again, if we were to go back to the original here on the left-hand side, you'll notice none of this lines up. It all looks silly, looks goofy. All you have to do, again, is just shift some things around as long as you keep everything separate and you can get everything fixed again. So again, that's why I highly recommend making sure you never merge layers when you're designing vehicles, when you're doing things like this. Keep them all in layer folders. If you look down here at the design, we can kind of scroll down to the rear end of the vehicle. We got our mountains here, and we can just go ahead and turn these off. And that way that rear end will no longer look silly right there. You can turn that off. But you notice there's this little overlap right here that looks a little dumb not having it there. So I might keep it on, again, and then I'll just come in here and delete certain sections of it. So I can come in here to the mountain itself. Here in this midsection, I can just turn that midsection off. Boom, there we go. And now it looks pretty much ready to rock. So again, keeping everything separated when you're designing vehicles in the first place will always help you. So layer groups, layer groups, layer groups. I cannot emphasize enough. Hopefully now you guys generally understand the process and the details and intricacies that it's going to take in order to take a paint scheme from one vehicle and put it onto another. So again, number one tip I can give you is as you're designing the vehicle, keep everything separate. My Miami skyline, that's separate. My pink layers, those are separate. My mountains, yep, that's separate. The more you can keep separate, the more you can keep in a layer group rather than merging everything together, the easier it's going to be when you get onto that new vehicle and need to eventually and inevitably shift something around. So keep things separate, keep them in layer groups. The other big tip is to avoid template seam lines. As you notice, the only thing we really had to change on this vehicle was here the template seam lines. They didn't quite line up. The more you can avoid them, the better off you're going to be. It's the reason I chose this vehicle for this video is if you notice, all of these areas, those are pretty simple. That's all just pink. By keeping this entire area pink, we were able to, in general, make this a lot easier on ourselves, making this gradient nice and straight across, up and down, and choosing vehicles that are very easy to transfer between. Say I've been going between the Mercedes GT3 car and the Ferrari GT3 car, it's going to be a much more difficult vehicle to transfer to and from. Well, I know that was a relatively short video, but I hope you guys found that helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them down in the description. And again, I emphasize this a lot. If anything confused you in this video that maybe you didn't feel like you were up to speed on GIMP and utilizing it to create cars, head back to those original videos. Have a lot of detail work in there. They're very long because there's a lot of detail to get through. If you know it, skip past it and go to the areas that you don't. I tried to cover everything you could possibly need to know in order to create a design like this that then you could transfer onto other vehicles. So again, I hope you guys enjoy your day, and I will catch you in the next one.